Have you ever walked away from someone who seemed emotionally unavailable, only to discover they never truly let you go? One day they disappear, the next they casually reappear. They avoid intimacy, yet somehow always seem to know what's happening in your life. It leaves you wondering, if they wanted distance so badly, why can't they seem to stay away? Today, we're going to explore one of the most misunderstood relationship dynamics, the avoidant attachment style and the subtle signs that an avoidant may be secretly obsessed with you. This isn't about romanticizing unhealthy behavior or encouraging you to chase someone who cannot meet your emotional needs. It's about understanding patterns so you can make informed, emotionally healthy decisions. An avoidant person often fears vulnerability more than rejection. They may crave connection while simultaneously pushing it away. Their behavior can feel contradictory because internally they are experiencing a conflict between longing for closeness and fearing dependence. That conflict can sometimes create behaviors that look like obsession, but rarely resemble healthy love. As we go through these 8 signs, remember one important principle. Someone's obsession with you is not the same thing as their capacity to love you consistently. Emotional availability, not emotional intensity, is what creates healthy relationships. Have you ever noticed someone who insists they need space, avoids deep conversations, and seems uncomfortable with closeness, yet somehow they never completely disappear from your life? They drift away, only to unexpectedly return with a casual text, a reaction to one of your social media posts, or a seemingly innocent question that could have been answered without contacting you at all. This behavior leaves many people feeling confused. If someone truly wanted distance, why would they keep coming back? Understanding this pattern requires looking beneath the surface of their actions rather than taking their words at face value. People with avoidant attachment tendencies often experience an internal conflict that is difficult for others to understand. One part of them craves connection because human beings naturally seek meaningful relationships. Another part fears emotional dependence, vulnerability, and the possibility of being hurt or losing their sense of independence. These two competing desires create a push and pull dynamic that can leave both people emotionally exhausted. When an avoidant repeatedly finds reasons to reappear, it does not necessarily mean they have suddenly become emotionally available or ready for a committed relationship. More often, it reflects an unresolved emotional attachment that they have not fully processed. They may genuinely miss your presence, your kindness, your emotional support, or the familiarity of the connection you once shared. However, missing someone is very different from having the emotional skills required to build a healthy relationship. This distinction is one of the most important lessons you can learn. Many people mistake reappearance for transformation, believing that every message signals growth or a renewed commitment. In reality, the return may simply be an attempt to reduce their own feelings of loneliness, uncertainty, or emotional discomfort without addressing the deeper issues that cause them to withdraw in the first place. Imagine someone who walks toward a warm fire on a cold night. They appreciate the warmth and comfort, but as soon as the heat becomes intense, they instinctively step back. Once they feel cold again, they move closer. This cycle repeats, not because the fire has changed, but because they cannot regulate their comfort with closeness. Relationships with avoidant individuals often follow a similar pattern. They seek connection when they feel emotionally deprived, but retreat when intimacy begins to feel overwhelming. Their repeated return can create hope in the other person, making it seem as though this time will finally be different. Yet without genuine self-awareness, accountability, and a willingness to work on their attachment patterns, the cycle is likely to repeat itself. This is why it is so important not to interpret every return as proof of love. Love is demonstrated through consistency, reliability, and emotional presence over time. A single message after months of silence does not erase repeated patterns of withdrawal. An unexpected phone call is not the same as sustained emotional investment. Healthy relationships are not built on occasional moments of connection surrounded by long periods of uncertainty. They are built on trust, mutual effort, open communication, and the willingness to stay engaged even when emotions become uncomfortable. The healthiest response is not to become an expert at decoding every text message or trying to predict when they will come back again. Instead, focus on what their overall pattern tells you. Ask yourself whether their actions create peace or confusion. Do you feel secure when they are in your life, or do you constantly question where you stand? A relationship should not require you to become a detective, searching for hidden meanings behind every interaction. Emotional clarity is far healthier than emotional mystery. Someone who is truly ready for a meaningful relationship does not simply reappear when it is convenient. They remain present, communicate honestly, and consistently show through their actions that they value both the relationship and the person they are with. That kind of consistency is what deserves your trust, not the temporary comfort of someone who keeps coming back without ever truly staying. One of the clearest signs that an avoidant may still be emotionally attached is the way they quietly keep track of your life without actively participating in it. They rarely reach out directly, they avoid vulnerable conversations, and they may appear completely detached. Yet somehow they always seem to know what's happening with you. They have seen your latest social media story within minutes of you posting it. They know about your new job, your recent vacation, or changes in your personal life, even though you never told them. Sometimes they hear these details through mutual friends. Other times they simply observe from a distance, saying nothing while collecting information. This behavior often confuses people because it sends mixed messages. If they no longer care, why are they paying such close attention? The answer usually lies in the difference between emotional curiosity and emotional availability. For someone with avoidant attachment tendencies, watching from a distance often feels much safer than participating in the relationship itself. Observation allows them to remain connected without exposing themselves to vulnerability. They can satisfy their curiosity, reduce their anxiety, and reassure themselves that they still know what is happening in your world, all while avoiding the emotional risks that come with direct communication. It creates the illusion of connection without requiring genuine intimacy. This is why they may consistently view your online activity while rarely liking, commenting, or sending a message. They want to feel informed, but they may not feel emotionally equipped to engage. Many people interpret this silent monitoring as undeniable proof of love, but that conclusion can be misleading. Keeping tabs on someone is not the same as building a healthy relationship with them. An avoidant individual may miss the familiarity of your presence, wonder whether you have moved on, or feel unsettled by the thought of losing their place in your life. Those emotions are real, but they do not necessarily translate into the ability to communicate openly, resolve conflict, or offer consistent emotional support. There is an important difference between thinking about someone and showing up for them. Healthy love is expressed through honesty, reliability, and mutual effort, not through silent observation from the sidelines. Technology has made this pattern even more common. Social media allows people to maintain a sense of closeness without taking the emotional risks that real conversations require. An avoidant person can watch your stories, revisit your profile, notice changes in your life, and even compare themselves to the people around you, all without saying a single word. From their perspective, this can feel safer because they remain in control. They can decide when to look, when to stop, and when to disappear again without facing difficult questions or vulnerable emotions. Unfortunately, for the person being watched, this inconsistency often creates confusion and false hope. Seeing their name repeatedly appear among your viewers may tempt you to believe they are preparing to come back, even when there is no evidence of meaningful change. Instead of focusing on who is watching your life, focus on who is actively participating in it. Ask yourself whether this person's behavior brings you clarity or uncertainty. Do they communicate honestly when problems arise, or do they retreat into silence? Do they make you feel valued through consistent actions, or do they leave you guessing about their intentions? Emotional health is built on relationships where words and actions align. Someone who truly values you does not simply observe your journey from a safe distance. They walk beside you, even when conversations are difficult, emotions are uncomfortable, or life becomes challenging. Genuine connection requires presence, courage, and consistency. Silent monitoring may reveal unresolved feelings, but only consistent, emotionally available behavior demonstrates the capacity for a healthy and lasting relationship. Jealousy is one of the most misunderstood emotions in relationships, especially when it comes to people with avoidant attachment patterns. An avoidant person may insist they have moved on, claim they are happier without the relationship, or act as though your life no longer concerns them. On the surface, they may appear calm, detached, and completely unaffected. But sometimes their behavior tells a very different story. Instead of openly admitting that they feel threatened or hurt, they express those emotions in indirect ways. This is because acknowledging jealousy would also require acknowledging emotional attachment. And for someone who is uncomfortable with vulnerability, that can feel incredibly difficult. They often protect themselves by denying feelings they don't know how to manage, even when those feelings are clearly influencing their behavior. You may notice subtle changes when they realize you are moving forward with your life. They suddenly become curious about who you are spending time with. They ask mutual friends unexpected questions about your relationships. They may casually bring up your dating life in conversation, pretending it is just harmless curiosity. Sometimes they make sarcastic comments about someone new you are seeing, or criticize your choices without any obvious reason. Rather than saying, "I miss you," or "I'm struggling with seeing you move on," they may become distant, defensive, or unusually cold. These reactions are often less about the other person, and more about the uncomfortable emotions they are trying to suppress. This is where many people become confused. They interpret these signs of jealousy as proof that the avoidant has finally realized their true feelings. While jealousy can indicate emotional attachment, it should never be mistaken for emotional readiness. A person can be deeply affected by losing someone and still lack the emotional skills necessary to build a healthy relationship. Feeling possessive is not the same as being supportive. Missing someone is not the same as respecting them. Wanting someone back is not the same as being willing to change the behaviors that push them away in the first place. These distinctions are essential because many unhealthy relationships continue simply because one person mistakes emotional intensity for emotional maturity. Think about the difference between ownership and partnership. Jealousy often comes from a fear of losing something valuable, but healthy love comes from appreciating another person's freedom while choosing to build a life together. An avoidant individual may feel unsettled when they realize they no longer have easy access to your attention or emotional support. They may have assumed you would always be available, even after periods of silence or withdrawal. When they see that you are genuinely moving on, it forces them to confront a reality they may have been avoiding, that life continues and people heal. This realization can trigger feelings they have kept buried for a long time. The important lesson is not to let someone else's jealousy become the measure of your worth. Your value does not increase because someone suddenly becomes possessive after you begin healing. Real growth happens when you stop seeking validation from another person's emotional reactions and start measuring relationships by consistency, respect, and mutual effort. Ask yourself whether this person's actions create trust or confusion. Do they communicate honestly, or do they leave you guessing? Are they willing to take responsibility for past behaviors, or do they simply react when they fear losing you? Healthy relationships are built on openness, accountability, and emotional safety. Jealousy may reveal unresolved feelings, but it cannot replace genuine commitment. The strongest sign of love is not how intensely someone reacts when they fear losing you. It is how consistently they choose you, respect you, and show up for the relationship every single day. One of the more surprising patterns people notice after a relationship with an avoidant is that the avoidant often struggles to find the same sense of connection with someone else. On the surface, it may appear as though they have moved on effortlessly. They might start dating again quickly, immerse themselves in work, spend more time with friends, or project an image of complete independence. To the outside world, it can seem like they have left the past behind without looking back. However, appearances can be deceiving. Emotional processing does not always happen in real time, especially for individuals who are uncomfortable facing vulnerable emotions. Instead of working through grief and loss as they occur, avoidant individuals often suppress those feelings, allowing them to surface much later. As time passes, they may begin comparing new relationships to the one they once shared with you. They may notice that the conversations are not as meaningful, the emotional comfort is different, or the connection lacks the qualities they quietly appreciated but never fully acknowledged. This comparison is not always conscious. Sometimes it happens through small moments, a familiar song, a place you both visited, or a habit that reminds them of you. Other times it appears in their dating experiences when they realize that finding someone who genuinely understood them is more difficult than they expected. Ironically, the emotional distance they maintained during the relationship may have prevented them from fully appreciating what they had until it was no longer available. This delayed realization happens because emotional closeness can feel overwhelming to someone with avoidant tendencies. While they are in the relationship, they may focus on flaws, crave more independence, or convince themselves that leaving will bring relief. Once the relationship ends and the pressure of intimacy disappears, they often gain enough emotional distance to reflect more honestly. Without the immediate fear of vulnerability, they can finally recognize the qualities they overlooked. They may remember your patience during difficult conversations, your willingness to understand them, or the emotional safety you tried to create. Unfortunately, recognizing those qualities after the relationship has ended does not automatically mean they have developed the ability to sustain a healthier relationship. This is where many people make a painful mistake. They assume that because the avoidant now misses them or compares everyone else to them, reconciliation will naturally lead to a different outcome. But insight alone does not create lasting change. A person can recognize that they made mistakes and still repeat the same behaviors if they have not addressed the underlying fears driving those behaviors. Real transformation requires more than regret. It requires self-awareness, accountability, emotional honesty, and a genuine commitment to personal growth. Without those elements, the same cycle of closeness and withdrawal is likely to happen again, regardless of how much they miss the relationship. It is also important to understand that being compared to others should never become the source of your self-worth. You do not need someone to realize your value years later in order for your value to exist today. Your kindness, loyalty, empathy, and emotional investment were meaningful, whether or not they were fully appreciated at the time. Waiting for someone to recognize what they lost can keep you emotionally tied to the past instead of allowing yourself to move forward. The healthier perspective is to focus less on whether they are comparing everyone to you and more on whether the relationship itself met your emotional needs. Ask yourself whether you felt secure, respected, and consistently valued. A healthy relationship is not defined by becoming unforgettable after it ends. It is defined by feeling emotionally safe while it is happening. If someone only recognizes your worth after losing you, but still lacks the courage to grow, their realization changes very little. True love is not about discovering someone's value after they are gone. It is about appreciating, respecting, and nurturing that value while they are still by your side. Few relationship experiences are as emotionally draining as receiving constant mixed signals from someone who cannot seem to decide whether they want closeness or distance. One moment, they make you feel incredibly important. They send thoughtful messages, show genuine interest in your life, and create the impression that the relationship is finally moving in the right direction. Just when you begin to relax and trust the connection again, everything changes. Their replies become shorter, they stop initiating conversations, they cancel plans, or they disappear altogether without any clear explanation. Days or even weeks may pass before they suddenly return, acting as though nothing happened. This emotional inconsistency leaves many people asking the same question: what changed? In reality, the answer often has less to do with you and far more to do with the avoidant person's internal struggle. People with avoidant attachment tendencies often experience a conflict between their desire for connection and their fear of emotional dependence. They genuinely enjoy companionship, affection, and feeling understood. At the same time, when the relationship starts becoming deeper, more predictable, or emotionally intimate, Their nervous system may interpret that closeness as a threat rather than a source of security. Instead of discussing these fears openly, they instinctively create distance. They may convince themselves they need more independence, become overly focused on work, or suddenly feel uncertain about the relationship. To the other person, this shift feels confusing because it happens without warning. One day, everything seems perfectly fine, and the next day, the emotional connection feels as though it has vanished. This pattern creates an emotional roller coaster that can become surprisingly addictive. Human beings naturally seek consistency, and when consistency is missing, the brain begins searching for explanations. You may spend hours replaying conversations, wondering if you said something wrong or missed an important clue. Every small act of kindness from them suddenly feels incredibly significant because it interrupts the uncertainty. Psychologists sometimes describe this as intermittent reinforcement, a pattern where unpredictable moments of affection become more emotionally powerful because they are inconsistent. Instead of evaluating whether the relationship is healthy, you become focused on earning the next moment of closeness. Over time, this cycle can leave you emotionally exhausted without realizing how much energy you have spent trying to decode someone else's behavior. An avoidant person who sends mixed signals is not always acting with harmful intentions. In many cases, they are struggling with emotions they do not fully understand themselves. They may sincerely care about you, but caring about someone and being capable of sustaining emotional intimacy are not the same thing. Good intentions cannot replace consistent behavior. A relationship cannot thrive on occasional reassurance followed by repeated withdrawal. Healthy love requires reliability, open communication, and the willingness to remain emotionally present even when conversations become uncomfortable. This is why it is so important to evaluate patterns instead of isolated moments. Anyone can send a heartfelt message after a period of silence. Anyone can promise that things will be different. What matters is whether those words are followed by lasting actions. Does the person consistently communicate? Do they take responsibility when they pull away? Are they making a genuine effort to understand and change their patterns? Or are they simply repeating the same cycle with different explanations each time? Lasting relationships are built through repeated demonstrations of trustworthiness, not occasional bursts of affection. The most empowering question you can ask yourself is not, why are they giving me mixed signals? Instead, ask, how do these mixed signals affect my emotional well-being? If you constantly feel anxious, uncertain, or afraid of saying the wrong thing, the relationship is no longer providing emotional safety.